And again, what you have to understand is this timing issue when it comes to evolution is the Achilles heel of evolution. This is it, man. This is their weak point, okay? Because if you don't have tons of time, the whole thing falls on its face. The whole thing, the whole lie of evolution, the whole make-believe story of evolution is dependent upon massive amounts of time. And they even admit this. Let's take a look at this quote. This is Time Becomes the Hero. This is George Wald. He's the late professor of biology at Harvard. And listen to what he said. He said, time is in fact the what? The hero of the plot. The time with which we have to deal with is of the order of 2 billion years. Really, were you there? Do you have a watch that's still clicking from that? Well, how do you know? Right? I'm telling you folks, they just make this stuff up to fit their theory. He says, what we regard as impossible on the basis of human experience is meaningless here. And do you know what he just said? He says, listen, we don't see any evidence of this, as we saw before. We see no evidence of evolution in existence right now. We don't see it happening today. But that's meaningless because long ago, far away, we'll get to that in a second, right? This becomes their hero. You never see it now, but way back then, surely it happened. Well, first of all, stop calling me Shirley. Let's move on. Given so much time, the impossible becomes possible. Even the impossible of evolution. The possible probable. And the probable virtually certain. One only has to wait because time itself performs the what? His words. The miracles. I thought you'd deny that. But anyway, that's what he needs. And I'm glad he used that miracle because that is what it would take in order for evolution to come true. Okay? And basically what he's saying, pay attention. Let me break that down for you. He's saying this, just give it enough time, in a land far, far away, something mystical, something magical will surely take place. And if you think about when you were growing up as a kid, or if you read to your grandkids, that sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? In a land far, far away. In fact, that's exactly what it is, okay? And it's pretty crazy, okay? But you might be thinking, well, come on, Pastor Bill, are you serious? Once again, this is another lie from evolution? I mean, how many guys, it almost seems like every day, it could even be on commercials. I mean, it's on the TV, it's on the media, it's in the schools. Kids who love dinosaurs. Name a kid who doesn't love dinosaurs. The very first page of any book on dinosaurs, what's it usually start out with? Millions of years ago. I mean, it's everywhere. You mean to tell me that these guys are lying when it comes to these dates? Yes, they are. In fact, they once again, like with evolution, they want us to think that it's all based on hardcore scientific facts. And this is so sure we all agree. They don't even agree with each other. And there's nothing consistent about it. The same thing when it comes to these dates. The only thing that I would say agrees with evolution about their dates is their dates evolve. They keep changing. Let me give you just one example when it comes to dating the universe. Okay? Here's the process that it's gone through. Okay, what's the age of the universe? Well, in 1650, you had this guy, Bishop James Ussher. He calculated a creation day of Sunday, October 23rd, 4000 BC, or about 6,000 years ago. Now, I don't know, maybe you guys hooked on math, you can come to the same conclusion. I seriously doubt you can get the exact day and know that it was on a Sunday on October 23rd, but roughly, if you add up the dates, that's what you get. And by and large, most of Western civilization, that's what they believe. Okay? Is that we haven't been here that long. Okay? It's a matter of thousands, not millions, certainly not billions. But in 1760, all of a sudden it got cranked up to 75,000 years. Why? Well, there's two guys, maybe we can get to this some other time, that began to change the mindset of the people. First of all, you had in Western civilization the age of reason, the rise of humanism and things, the rational movement and things of that nature began to break away from the biblical training and mindset and concept. But you had a couple other guys. You had this guy, Charles Lyell, and you had another guy named James Hutton. Okay, especially with James Hutton about this time. And he began to come up with Lyell, these thing called the geologic column, which they're making up these big dates. So that starts to infiltrate the minds of people. Okay? And then you got in 1831, they said, no, it's 240 million years old. So these guys starting to work their influence into there as well. Then this is post-Darwin. Right? Now it's in 1897. No, it's 400 million years old. 1905, it was 500 million to 1.64 billion years old, Tom. 1928, no, it's 2 billion years old, the universe. No, 1947, 3 billion years old. You know, it was after World War II, inflation was going up, so maybe the universe was going up as well. 1952, I love this, 1 to 10 billion years old. I mean, come on, how is that exact? All right, let's put it in. How would you guys like to have that variance the next time you fill out your taxes? Well, I think I'm between 1 and 2. right? And these guys do it all the time. It's supposed to be exact. It's crazy, okay? 1987, it was 8 billion years old. 1995, 12 billion years old. Now, what is that? Do the math on that. That's 8 years later, it went up 4 billion. No wonder we're feeling old and tired. You notice that? We're aging, just sitting here. I wonder what it's up to now. Let's get here. 1997. No, it's 13 billion years old, okay? 1999, 13.4 billion years old. 2001, 14.8 billion years old. And the current is roughly around 15 billion years old. Although, if you will Google it, they'll now say it's 13.8 billion years old. But that depends on what source you're looking at. I'm not making this up. Another one I just even checked today because I'm telling you it changes all the time. So people say, no, it's 13.8. But another source was saying, even today, it's anywhere from, listen to this variance, 10 to 20 billion years old. And we're supposed to trust these guys. They know what they're talking about, and it's consistent, and you can go to town on it. You can bank on this. It's crazy, folks, okay? It's not a very stable timeline. At least Jesus sticks to the same account, okay? But these guys are all over the place, okay? It's not a steady science, okay? But I'm telling you, folks, that's the tip of the iceberg, okay? Now let's move from that unstable timetable to some scientific facts showing that, yes, Jesus Christ is not a liar. Okay, and the first evidence showing us he's not a liar, we really do have young creation, folks, is the evidence from space. Okay, space. And the Lord willing, next week we'll get into the earth and other kinds of neat things. But let's take a look from space, folks. There's no way we have been here for millions and billions of years. Now, again, as I go through this stuff, notice it's not going to take all of these to prove the point. It just takes one. And there's a whole lot more than one, and I'm not going to deal with all of them. I'm just going to give you a smattering of a few. How about star clusters? Star clusters contain hundreds of thousands of stars that are moving and held together by gravity. Okay, that's cool, but here's the problem. In some clusters, the stars are moving so fast that they could not have been held together for millions and billions of years. Okay, they should have long since flown apart or become unclustered by now, right? So, think about it. Since we still have clusters of stars, the age of the universe should be measured in thousands of years, not billions of years. Why do we still have the clusters? It's just the first one. How about supernovas, okay? Anybody ever drive a Chevy Nova? That's not what I'm talking about, by the way. Supernovas, okay? You thought you were super driving that Nova. Okay, but anyway, cool. I had one of my worst encounters ever in, what was that, a 76 Nova. My sister, I'm digressing, but this was hilarious. I don't know if I've ever told this story. I guess it's on tape. We borrowed my sister's. I can't believe we even made it to California. My brother and I went one summer, drove from Kansas to California in her 76 Nova. No air conditioning, nothing, right? And so we're going up through Nebraska from Kansas and coming back down. We're going through Utah, through the salt flats, right? And we are just, no air conditioning, right? In the summer in the salt flats, right? And we're parched for thirst, really whatever. Our lips are all chapped and whatever. And lo and behold, as fate would have it, I noticed that in the passenger seat, in the front seat there, my sister apparently had some cherry chapstick, cherry-flavored chapstick, and it rolled out, and I go, hey, whoa, wow, oh, praise God, right? And so I popped that up, and told my brother, hey, we got some chapstick. Oh, man, praise God. And so we're putting the chapstick all over, really a whole bunch, right? Because we're just like, right? And so he puts it on, whatever, and so put it back down. And so we're driving, I don't know how many miles, right? We're just looking around. Cars are passing us until happened to look in the side rear mirror. Looked like total clowns. It wasn't cherry chapstick. It was cherry lip gloss, and we put it all over, man. We didn't look in the mirror. We looked like clowns. All we were missing was the white paint. We thought people were waving at us. As they were driving by. But anyway, Chevy Novas is not what I'm talking about. It's a supernova. And when big stars run out of fuel, they explode, okay, and they become what we call supernovas, okay? Now, according to astronomical theory, in galaxies of our size anyway, approximately 7,250 supernova remnants should be visible if we've really been around for billions of years. But if we look at the creationist age, or what we see in the Bible, we should expect to find anywhere from 125 to 200 supernova remnants, all right? So let's put it to the test. What do we find? The actual number of supernova remnants visible from the earth is 205, which is almost spot on to the creationist timetable, way off from the evolutionists of billions of years. Doesn't work. How about the existence of comets? The number of comets are decreasing due to decay and made up of like ice particles. It's like throwing a snowball. It just eventually will start to fall apart. They're continually disintegrating, and a number of them have known to already break up. Evidently, all of them self-destruct within relatively a short period of time, and it's believed that the lifespan of a comet only lasts about how long? 10,000 years. Interesting. So think about this. Here's the problem. If comets only last 10,000 years and the age of the universe is supposed to be billions of years, why do we still have comets? That's really interesting, isn't it? The existence of comets shows that the universe has to be measured at least, bare minimum, less than 10. But even more than that because we still got them. And again, that agrees with the biblical account. How about hydrogen? Hydrogen is constantly being converted into helium throughout the universe. Now here's the problem though. If the universe were billions of years old, there would be no or almost no hydrogen left, okay, because it's converting into helium. It should have long since disappeared by now. But an astronomy professor, Fred Hoyle, said the universe consists almost entirely of what? Hydrogen still. Therefore, it shows us the universe has to be still quite young, or it wouldn't be around like it is today. How about some planets' rings? The rings of Saturn and Jupiter are primarily composed of ammonia and pebbles of various sizes. And the problem is this. Scientists are trying to figure out why the rings are still there. And the reason why is because we've really been here for how long? Billions of years. You guys can join in any time you'd like. Billions of years. They should have been vaporized into outer space long ago or been destroyed by meteoroids. Okay? And if that wasn't enough, Jupiter's magnetic field should have swept them out by now. And furthermore, the rings of Saturn are still distinctly bright when the debris, left behind by comets should have caused those rings to turn dark by now. But they aren't, okay? They're not dark. They're still bright, as though they haven't been around for that long. Very interesting. How about planets are cooling? This is cool. Jupiter and Saturn are cooling off rapidly. Okay? In fact, they're losing heat twice as fast as they're gaining it from the sun. Here's the problem. If they were billions of years old, they should have been cold stone by now, right? Think about it. But they're not. They're not stone cold, okay? They're still hot, and they haven't been around that long, just like a cup of coffee sitting on the coffee table. So let me give you an example. Ron comes over to my place. Hey, Ron, come on over Saturday. Just want to chat, have some good Christian fellowship. And he comes on over, and he notices that I already got it made. There's a piping hot cup of coffee right there on the table, and he goes to grab it, and then I start yelling at him, "Stop, Ron, whatever you do, don't touch it, don't touch that coffee. It's going to fry you, it's going to burn your other hand, it's going to mess you up, stop." And then Ron asked me the question, well, why? And then I would respond like this, because it's been there for 15 billion years. Now what would Ron say? He'd probably tell me to lay off the coffee, right? Get a better night's sleep, do something, because I'm going to call Bill Wimberly and the rest of the deacons, and we're going to lay hands on you. So, what? Well, see, that's the same problem, folks. These planets are cooling off. We can measure that. We know that. Okay? But if you've really been around for 15 billion years, they should be stone cold by now. Why are they still piping hot like a cup of coffee that was recently made? Right? It's the same thing. That's the whole point that's going on there. How about the appearance of Venus? The high surface temperatures on Venus combined with other surface features support a young age for Venus, okay? Here's the problem. If the planet were 4 billion years old, as taught by evolution, its dense atmosphere would have long ago worn away all the craters, but it hasn't, okay? They're still there. And this is why they even admit this. This guy, Richard Kerr, he wrote this in Science magazine, by the way, called Venus is looking what? Too pristine. In other words, can I translate that for you? It's really messing up our theory. Okay? He said this, listen, the Venus flybys have shown that the planet to be young in the what? Not just young in the extreme. When they read the geological clock that tells them how old the Venusian surface is, they find a planet on the brink of what? Adolescence. Really? Well, that's pretty interesting there. But how about the appearance of Mars? Just like Venus, neither can Mars be billions of years old, because in only a few thousand years, the type of harsh dust storms occurring on Mars that we see would have eroded away its many craters and volcanoes, but it hasn't. They're still there. And it also, the long-term erosion would have obliterated the strong color differences on the surface of Mars, but as you can see, that's the actual photograph. It hasn't. It's still full of color. So that's another evidence for that. How about the sun's solar wind? This is cool. Like a giant vacuum cleaner, the sun, with all the gravity and stuff, the sun sweeps up almost 100,000 tons of inflow per day. It's like a giant space vacuum. How many guys would like to have a vacuum cleaner that powerful? Wouldn't that be awesome? So you see, you think you do, but you don't. Because as soon as you turned it on, it would not only get rid of the dirt, of course, Yes, it would. It'd get your carpet first, then the wood underneath, then the house, then probably you, and we'd have to pray for you. Okay, but that's what it is. It's like a giant vacuum cleaner, right? Sucking up all the old space particles, okay? At the same time, the sun's radiation pushes the small dust particles outward into space. Well, for those of you hooked on science, this is called the Poynting-Robertson effect, right? Now, here's the problem. If the solar system were really what? Billions of years old. That's right, Bobby. Like evolution teaches. Then the solar system should have what? Swept clean by now. If that vacuum been on that long? But it's not. These microparticles are still abundant. Therefore, our solar system still has to be what? Quite young, certainly. How about the size of the sun? The sun is discovered to be shrinking in size, which means it used to be bigger. How many of you guys can figure that out without any help? You're on the ball. That's right. Now, here's the problem. If the solar system was 4.6 billion years old, the sun, shrinking at a constant rate of about 0.1% per century, okay, would have been so big, it would have made life on Earth impossible. The increased gravitational attraction would have pulled the Earth and other planets into it. How many guys would say that would seriously ruin your plans for Memorial Day weekend? Right? You probably wouldn't get around to it. Okay? But speaking of barbecues, as little as 50,000 years ago, the sun would have been so large that our oceans would boil, and in far less time, 25,000 years, all of life would have been barbecued. Now, you could have saved some money on that propane, but you wouldn't be able to enjoy your food. You would have been cooked too, okay? How about isotopes on the moon? Isotopes known as U-236 and TH-230, which are short-lived isotopes. They were found in the lunar materials. It created a problem. You see, if the moon was a vast age, these isotopes would have long since decayed, okay, and would be absent from the samples. But they're in relative abundance, showing us that the age of the moon has to only be in thousands of years, not billions of years. Okay, a couple more here. The moon's distance. The moon is moving away from the Earth at a rate of about 2 inches per year. It's about the same rate of speed when you're waiting in line there at Walmart. Yeah, we'll go on. That means it used to be closer. How many guys can figure that out? Okay, it's moving away. All right, so it used to be closer. All right, now here's the problem. Do the math. Just a few million years ago, the moon would have been so close to the Earth that the moon's gravitational pull on the Earth, which controls the tidal activity on the Earth, would have created tides that would destroy the Earth twice a day. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's been clinically proven that you can only drown once a day. Continue on. Secondly, the more time you add, therefore, logically, then the closer the moon gets, right? Which would have been totally catastrophic for life on Earth. In fact, some would say that maybe this is what killed off the dinosaurs. The moon got so close, Tom. They don't want to believe in the Bible. They don't want to admit that it was a flood. We've heard them come up with theories like it was constipation, or they got dumb, or it was a parasite. I'm not kidding you, okay? But maybe this is what it was, okay? They got mooned, you know? It got so close, it smacked them in the head, at least the tallest ones. But see, the little ones didn't escape, Tom, because the big dinosaurs with the big necks, yeah, exactly. You know exactly where we're going. They fell on the smaller ones and squished them and killed them. That's what happened. Hey, turnabout is fair play. If you're going to make up a fairy tale, I guess we get to make up one too. Okay? Is what we're seeing, okay? But I don't know about you, but I would say, folks, that those scientific facts, what? Scientific facts, just from space, and we're just getting started, it's kind of hard on the evolutionary timeline. How about you? Okay? Just a little bit. And again, what you got to keep in mind, folks, this is the Achilles heel of evolution. If they don't have this big bunch of time, the whole thing, by definition, falls flat on its face. It completely crumbles. This is why they push it. This is why they brainwash kids from wee high. As soon as they pick up that book on the dinosaurs, they got to get them believing it right now. Millions of years old. And it's not based at all on scientific facts. And again, remember, it just takes one of these facts. I didn't have to go through all those. It just takes one to destroy the theory, right? And yet that's just the tip of the iceberg. But usually at this point, if you guys are familiar with this debate with the evolutionists when it comes to how long have we been here, they usually throw something out like this. Oh yeah? Well, we know, Tom, that we've been here for millions of years because of starlight. You ever heard that? Starlight. And what they say is they'll say, we know that it can't be 6,000 years old because we know it has to be billions of years old because the galaxies and stars out there are billions and millions of light years away, and that's how long it took for the light to get here to Earth, so therefore we couldn't be here for 6,000 years, right? Have you heard that? It's usually a comeback, okay? Well, first of all, you as an evolutionist bringing that up to the creationist, the Christian, who takes the Bible literally, you're actually guilty of hypocrisy. Because they'll usually bring that out, even though it just takes one of those, and you could go to town on a whole lot more, and we will, Lord willing. Okay? And it just takes one. But they'll invariably bring up this whole starlight issue. Like, how do you explain that it takes billions of years or millions of years for starlight to reach a place? Okay? Well, first of all, you're being hypocritical. Because by definition of evolution, you have the same problem. Okay? In fact, they know it's a problem. Okay? In fact, they call it the horizon problem. Check it out. Okay? And if they believe that the universe has been here for 13.8 billion years old, listen, there's not enough time for light to travel from the Big Bang from one end of the universe to the other. So if you think that you're going to throw this out at the creationists and saying, aha, we got you, you got the same problem as far as how did the light get from one end of the universe to the other. But unlike the, so that's called hypocrisy, but unlike the evolutionists, we Christians have an answer. Okay? And the problem is when they bring up this issue, when it comes to starlight, they're making a faulty assumption. You're assuming that light has always traveled at the same speed, that it's constant, and it's not. And this is a well-documented fact. In fact, they've not only have stopped the speed of light, but they've sped it up even faster. Light is not a constant, which means maybe it was a whole lot faster when God said, let there be light. Let's take a look at that evidence.
The entire theory behind a black hole is that light can be attracted by gravity. Well, if light can be attracted by gravity, then you cannot say the speed of light is a constant. Okay? At Harvard University back in '99, they slowed light down to 38 miles an hour. The next year, they slowed it down to 1 mile an hour, and the next year brought it to a dead stop. Light goes, pretty quick, 186,000 miles a second. They slowed it down. It was done at Harvard, it was done at Smithsonian, it was done at Cambridge University, a repeatable, demonstrable experiment. Now that is science. If you do an experiment, get a result, somebody else follows your data, does the same experiment, gets the same result, that's science. They slowed light down. This article came out on Fox News Channel. They said, we've succeeded in holding a light pulse still. They brought the speed of light to zero, brought it to a dead stop. Meanwhile, back in 2000 at Princeton University, they speeded light up to 300 times the speed of light. Astronomer Barry Setterfield, an Australian government astronomer, said, during the last 300 years, 164 measurements of the speed of light have been published using 16 different measurement techniques. The speed of light has apparently decreased so rapidly, experimental error cannot explain it. Clear back in '87, they said, the speed of light was 10 billion times faster at time zero. There must have been a faster speed of light. There have been articles from the 80s, 90s, 2000s saying, look, the speed of light is not a constant. They said no physical law prevents anything from exceeding the speed of light. In 2 published experiments, the speed of light was apparently exceeded by as much as a factor of 100. Dr. Magluelcio, however you pronounce his name here, I got his book on the table. He says the shocking possibility is the speed of light might change in time during the life of the universe. Could it be the speed of light was faster? Here's an article in the newspaper said speed of light may have changed over history, study says. Winnipeg Free Press, nothing's reliable, not even the speed of light. We have shown that a time-varying speed of light could provide a resolution to well-known cosmological puzzles.
Including the puzzle, how in the world did starlight get here to the Earth if supposedly we've been here for billions of years? Well, and that's just it. You're making a faulty assumption. Maybe the reason why it appears that it would take billions of light years for the light to get here to Earth from the stars is because that's just it. It appears that way today because the speed of light wasn't traveling the same back then as it was today. Okay, when God said, let there be light, it was probably traveling a whole lot faster. Okay, and has no problem getting here in plenty of time, not disagreeing with known science. Okay, no problem whatsoever with that. Therefore, you can't use distant starlight to try to say that we haven't been around for 6,000 years. Again, you got the same problem, but at least we have an answer to that. Okay, and by the way, God is an infinite God. Could it very well be possible that he used some sort of mechanism that we don't know about? I mean, after all, he is infinite. But still, that's a pretty good explanation, I think, for doing that. And it doesn't disagree with science. But that's not all. The second scientific evidence showing us that Jesus Christ is not a liar, we haven't been around for millions and billions of years, is the evidence from the earth. Okay? But we're going to have to get into that, Lord willing, next week. But I will give you one little thing. Have you ever thought about this? if the earth has really been here for billions of years, based on the erosion rates, why do we still have mountains? Shouldn't they have long since eroded flat by now? That's the tip of the tip of the tip of the away. Let's take a look at the revolving dates of the earth. Just like last week we saw at the universe. They're making it up as they go. Let's take a look at just a few of those examples. Now, let's start off with the biblical starting point. According to Jesus, we saw last week, but also 1650, Bishop James Ussher calculated a creation day of Sunday, October 23rd, 4000 BC, about 6,000 years ago. Now, again, I don't think you can get necessarily that exact, okay, but roughly that's about what you get if you add up the dates in the Bible. But in 1862, post-Darwinian influence, they said, oh, no, 20 million. Now, notice it's not anywhere close to billion. It's just 20 million. Okay. 1897, it went to 40 million. Okay. 1899, it was 90 million. Now, is anybody starting to feel old? In 2 years, we went up 50 million years. I'm tired. Let's go home. I'm going to take a nap. But anyway, that's right. But, no, 1921. Look at that's a big jump, right? 1 billion. It's the roaring 20s. Things were happening. You might as well just crank up the age of the earth while you're at it. And inflation and whatever. 1932 is 1.6 billion years old. The earth was, they believe. 1947, 3.35 billion. That's a pretty big jump. But again, after the war, you had the inflation. The economy wasn't doing too well. So you can understand that. It affected everything, apparently. 1956, 4.5 billion years old. And then the current one is roughly about 4.54 billion. Although today I came across another one. No, it's about 4.5, and it's getting a little bit higher. So who knows? I don't know. Maybe it depends on the way the wind blows. I don't know. But that's currently where it seems to be landing, at least for now. Okay? But don't bank your life on it, okay? But anyway, how many guys would say that that's not a very stable timetable? Okay, the Bible has been around, okay, the New Testament, for about 2,000 years. Did you know the Bible is still saying the same thing? About 6,000 years ago. Okay, but these guys, man, they crank it up millions and billions of years just over a few years, okay? And but again, let's move on now from this unstable timetable. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm telling you, folks, they're making this up as they go to fit their preconceived idea, including their false theory called evolution. They're making it fit, because remember, what's the premise? These guys, in order for evolution to work, you don't only have to ignore the evidence of intelligent design, you have to have millions and billions of years for their evolutionary fairy tale to work, right? We never see the evidence today. There is no examples today. It never happens before our eyes today, so that becomes the hero of the plot we saw last week. We don't see it now, but millions of years ago, surely it happened. Well, first of all, Robert, that's right, but stop calling me Shirley. You're scaring me. Okay, but that's why they need and they continue to push for these millions of years, okay? But let's take a look at some more scientific facts, not only from the space we saw and the universe last week. Now let's take a look at some of the evidence from the earth. There's no way, folks, we've been here that long, even on our home planet. Okay, let's take a look at that evidence. First of all, meteor dust. Micrometeors, or meteor dust, is composed of iron, nickel, and silicate compounds, and is continually entering our atmosphere. Okay? In fact, it's been measured that they are adding 25 tons to Earth daily. Okay? Isn't that rough? That's pretty, you guys ready to go on a diet? Maybe that's what it is. That's gaining weight. I just lost a pound. Let's go get some ice cream. Yes, what? Blame it on the dust. But anyways, that's what's happening. Whether you see it or not, that's about how much is happening. So that's something you can pretty well measure. Now, here's the problem for the evolutionists. If the Earth has been here for billions of years, okay, then the amount of nickel in the ocean would have been massively greater than what we measure it today. And the fact is, there's only enough meteor dust on Earth to account for a few thousand years of meteor dust influx. Well, that's very interesting how that kind of works out. How about the Earth's helium? Nobel Prize medalist and physicist Melvin Cook found that helium-4 enters our atmosphere from solar wind and radioactive decay of uranium. How many guys are so glad that guy took on that project? Isn't that life-changing? Well, actually, it worked out pretty good when you're looking at a young Earth, because here's what happened. It presented a problem when he discovered this. You see, if the Earth has been here for billions of years, okay, our present atmosphere would contain about 1.4 parts per million of helium. But the facts show that the amount of helium-4 in our present-day atmosphere dates the Earth in less than 10,000 years, still within the biblical time frame. Very interesting. Okay, how about Earth's topsoil? Calculations have shown that it takes from 300 to 1,000 years to build up just 1 inch of topsoil. How many guys would like to have that job? Hi, Bobby, what do you do? I'm a professional dirt starer. Okay. Anyway, whatever. But anyway, somebody does it. Okay, it's a job somewhere. So that's how long it takes. We can measure that. Okay, by the way, here's the problem. The average depth of topsoil throughout the world is only about 8 inches average, which means the earth could only be, do the math, a few thousand years old. Okay? It should be a whole lot higher if we've been here for millions and billions of years. How about Earth's erosion? If the Earth has been billions of years old, and erosion has been going on for at least millions of years, stop and think about this. You know, erosion erodes things down, dirt, things of that nature, hills, eventually it goes away. Well, stop and think about it. If we've really been here for billions of years, how could there still be sharp cliffs on mountains? Sharp cliffs anywhere? In fact, how could there still be any mountains anywhere if we've really been here for billions of years? Think about it, folks. The very fact that you still see mountains surrounding Las Vegas and they haven't all eroded flat should tell you something, okay? How come everything hasn't been washed away if the earth has been here constantly eroding for millions and billions of years? Okay? The fact is, if the earth has been here for billions of years, the ocean floor would be covered by sediments from the land erosion measuring 60 to 100 miles thick. Ruth, how many would you say that would have ruined your boat trip? Right? Right? And John would have been cleaning that motor and the dirt and stuff. Excuse me? Okay? And all the continents would have been eroded away. Instead, we only find a few thousand feet of sediment declaring that the earth has only been here eroding for just a few thousand years. Well, that's kind of interesting. How about the ocean salt? Today, roughly about 3.6% salt in the ocean. They're getting saltier every day from the water containing mineral salts flowing off the continents into the oceans due to erosion. Okay? Here's the problem. For those of you who want to believe that the earth is billions of years old, there's not enough salt in the ocean. There's only enough content for a few thousand years. How about Earth's oil and gas? When an oil or gas well is tapped, the contents will spray high into the sky by pressures as great as 20,000 pounds per square inch. We call them a gusher, right? Okay, is what you see there. Now here's the problem. The pressure in modern day oil and natural gas fields is too high for them to be very old. The pressure should have long since bled off by now, but it hasn't. Why is that pressure still here if we've been here for millions and billions of years? And that was supposedly created millions and billions of years. Interesting. How many guys ever had a helium balloon? How many guys have sucked the air into that? Sound like a Martian, right? You used to do that, right? And but anyway, how many guys you had a helium balloon and you refrained from the temptation to suck that into your lungs and sound like a Martian, and you tried to keep that thing floating in the air as long as you could. But try as you might, you don't even touch it. You can even hide it in the closet. Okay? After a couple of days, what happens? It automatically begins to bleed out, right? No matter what you try, it's going to start. It's the same thing with that. These are, if you will, giant balloons underneath with high pressure with these oil pockets. Why are they still under high, immense pressure? If we've really been here for billions of years, why hasn't all the pressure bled out by now? Why do they gush when you pop into them? Okay? And that's the other thing. Now, the fact about the matter is the pressure in these deep rock formations and their trapped oil shows us they cannot be older than just a few thousand years. And for those of you have been convinced or told that it takes millions of years to make oil, not long ago, Jordan comes to the rescue. Canada's environment minister at the time, Tom McMillan, they did a $196 million project to build a commercial plant which would use heat to turn 500,000 tons of sewage into 700,000 barrels of oil. Okay? So they're making sewage, trash, and they're in this plant. And how long did it take them to take that sewage and turn it into oil? Here's how long the process took. 30 minutes. So with modern technology, with great high pressure and high heat, you can compress it and create oil in a matter of minutes. So let me, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll eventually, Lord willing, get there with a worldwide flood. If the world really was, and the Bible says it was, covered with water to the tops of the highest mountains at the time, okay, that would create a lot of pressure, right? And a lot of heat from that pressure with everything being submerged under that massive amount of water. In fact, all the foliage, all the carcasses, all the trees and the rotting mass of foliage underneath the water, you could squeeze that like sewage with that high heat and pressure, and it would be buried, and it would create pockets of oil all over the planet, if, of course, there was a worldwide flood. Boy, that sounds Like the Bible's got that right too. Very interesting. Okay, how about the Earth's magnetic field? The Earth's magnetic field has been measured since 1835, and it's growing weaker, which means it used to be stronger. How many guys can figure that out without any help tonight? Besides Mario. That's right. All right, now here's the problem for the evolutionists. If we go backwards, even just as recently as 20,000 years ago, the heat produced from the magnetic field would probably have liquefied the Earth, and 1 million years ago, the magnetic field would have been so strong it would have vaporized the planet. Okay? And so based on the magnetic field, we know the Earth still has to be quite young because you're here. How many guys have not been vaporized today? Once again, those of you who are not raising your hand, we need to pray for you. Let's move on. The Earth's spinning rate, all right? The Earth's spinning rate is slowing down at a rate of 1/3 of a second every year, which means it used to be spinning faster. You guys are on the ball. All right. Now, here's the problem. If we extrapolate back billions of years ago, okay, the Earth would have been spinning so fast that centrifugal force would have pulled the land masses to the equator, drawn them out to a height of over 40 miles, and pushed the oceans to the poles. How many guys would say that would have messed up your Memorial Day plans? You would not have got to the barbecue. Okay? And the overall shape of the Earth would have changed from a sphere to as flat as a pancake. Okay? As we see there. But, in fact, some feel that this might be another valid theory as to what happened to the dinosaurs. Remember, they don't want to listen to the biblical account that it was a worldwide flood. Oh, go figure. Okay? I don't want to do that. And they'll admit anything like back pains, constipation, anything that got dumb. You know, we saw those before. Okay? But maybe this is what happened to the dinosaurs, if you think about it. Okay? Apparently, according to evolution, the Earth got spinning so fast millions of years ago that the dinosaurs flew just right off. Watch. Pew! Joey, you just saw with your own eyes. Can you believe it? I mean, this is awesome. Wow, that's if they're going to make up a story in a fairy tale, I guess I get to make up one too. Yeah, and the sound effect too. I like that. But again, what are we dealing with here? Not just the biblical account. We're dealing with what? Scientific data, scientific facts. And you take a look at the scientific facts, not just of the universe and the space, but now even the Earth itself, where we live, by the way. And it kind of messes up their timeline, doesn't it? Okay, and remember, they have to have, this is the Achilles heel of evolution. They have to have millions and billions of years for their fairy tale to work. But it doesn't work, okay? It's a lie, okay? And again, remember, I've said this before, but all it takes, folks, I don't have to rip off 10 examples. And by the way, there's a ton more. I don't have to rip off the examples I gave last week. It just takes one. And that should cause them to consider, wait a second, maybe we're wrong. But they won't go down that route because they have to have millions and billions of years to pull off their lie. But you might be like Joey up here on the front row thinking, okay, maybe they got this universe thing wrong, and maybe they got the Earth thing wrong, okay, but there's got to be some sort of logical reason why these guys are so far off. Okay, there has to be, okay? Well, again, let's take a look at some logic, and you tell me if they're even going to succumb to that. I don't think so. But let's take a look at some logical things that we see on planet Earth, and let's see if we've really been here for millions and billions of years, okay? Not just the Earth itself. But how about the history of man? The written history of man dates only back to about roughly 5,000 years. Well, stop and think about it. If man's been here for millions of years, why don't we have more records of man's existence? Somewhere? Anywhere? Interesting. How about the writing of man? The oldest writing of man is about, again, roughly 5,000 years. So the question, if man's been here for millions of years, why don't we have older evidence of writing? Oh, and by the way, when a writing does appear, it's fully formed, it's intelligent. It's not some ape that accidentally bumped up a piece of clay. Oh, hey, look at the letter A. I've struck upon something. But it's a complete alphabet, fully intelligible. It's not a learning process. It's fully formed, fully developed. Think about that. Okay, why is that? The population of man, this is important, starting with 8 people, you know, the survivors of the flood, because God did a restart with the population according to the Bible, and applying modern growth rate since the flood of Noah's day, we should have a total human population of around 6 billion people. Hey, guess what we have? About 6 billion people, roughly. However, in evolutionary time scale, you run into some serious problems. Starting with just one couple, just 41,000 years ago, will give us a total population of 2 to 10 to the 89th power. Now again, that's so huge that the number of people that is would be so great there would not be enough space in the universe to hold that many bodies. How many guys would say that's seriously crowded? Right, I'll stick to the traffic here in Vegas. Okay? That's crazy, folks. There's no way we can be around for that long. And again, by the way, that does calculate, you know, natural disasters, disease, and all that stuff too, and it still comes up with that number. There's no way that we could be there that long. Okay, how about the age of the Sahara? The Sahara Desert is expanding, has been calculated to be about roughly 4,000 years ago, which happens to be roughly around after the flood, right? Is when you would expect that to start. How many guys would say that you're probably not going to have any deserts during the flood? You guys are awesome tonight. This is great. If I had enough gum, I'd give it to you all, but I don't. But anyway, right? So therefore, it had to start sometime after the flood, 4,400 years or so ago. So, and that's what we see. Hey, wow, that's interesting. All right? Question, if the earth is really billions of years old, why isn't the Sahara Desert larger than it is? Why isn't it all the way through Africa by now? Billions. I'm not talking millions, billions. Why isn't half the earth covered in desert by now? Very interesting. How about the age of coral? Oldest known coral reef formation is about 4,200 years old, which again is about the time of Noah's flood. But if the earth was really billions of years old, why aren't coral reefs older than 4,200 years? Now, you'll have some folks out there that say, oh no, coral reef is proof that we've been here for millions of years, because we all know that it takes millions of years. Don't touch that coral reef. It takes, no. Folks, this is easily demonstrated. They've demonstrated now that coral reef grows very rapidly. It doesn't take millions of years for that stuff to form. That's another lie. Okay? And then, Lord willing, we'll get into another lie. How many guys have heard this one? You ever go on those cave tours and they tell you that the planet will blow up, the IRS will come after you, and they will sic the U.S. military on you if you dare touch that stalactite? Have you heard that? The guys there, the Antichrist will pop out a hole and suck you into, you know. But they warn you, don't touch it. Why? Because what do they say? It takes millions of years. A lie. Did you know they can form in a very, I'm ahead of myself. In a couple of weeks, we'll get to that. Evidence is that stalactites and stalactites can form very rapidly. But same thing with coral reef, okay? But let's move on. How about the age of trees? The oldest known tree is the bristlecone pine tree, about roughly 4,300 years. Although I saw some others in research this week, some would say a little bit lower, 39, 50, something like that. But about 4,300 years, which again is about the time of Noah's flood, right? Okay, when they started growing again. But wait a second, if the earth is billions of years old, why aren't there any trees older than 4,300 years? At least one for a million. Because we haven't been here for millions. They said 4.54 billion. Why is that? Okay. Now, there are some that say, oh no, you creationists, you Christians, you got it wrong. They've done some new dating tests on these bristlecone pine trees, and they're about 8,000 years old. Well, first of all, stop and think about that. Even if that's true, that's not millions of years old. It's still within thousands. Okay, but second of all, they make a classical error. They make some faulty assumptions, okay? And they assume that each tree ring represents exactly 1 year. That's not true. That's the faulty assumption. It's now known, folks, that various stresses like insects, earthquakes, weather, release of gas can cause ring disturbances, giving the appearance that it's older when it's not. So you can't rely upon just, it's got the 8,000 rings, so it must be 8,000 years. That's not true. That's a faulty assumption. In fact, folks, they make the same faulty assumption when it comes to ice core samples. Many times they'll say, oh, you Christians are wrong. We haven't been here for 6,000 years because we've drilled deep down into the ice. And when we pull those ice core samples up, we see all these rings. And if you count up the rings, we've been here for tens of thousands of years. Well, you're making a faulty assumption. You're assuming that each one of those rings represents 1 year. And it doesn't, like this guy shows. Let's take a look.
I was preaching in Denver one time, and some guys came and they said, Hovind, we know you teach the earth is only 6,000 years old. We'd like to prove to you you're wrong. Would you come with us, please? I said, sure. They took me to this big freezer in Denver, outside of Denver in Lakewood. It's the National Ice Core Laboratory. 36 below zero in there. They put this big suit on me, big hat, big gloves, big boots. I was freezing in 5 seconds when I walked in there. I got Florida blood, you know, it's real thin. They said, Hovind, we go to Greenland and we drill holes through the ice. You know, government job. And we take this big pipe, we drill it down in, and we bring this ice core out of the middle of the pipe, and we save it in this big freezer here in Lakewood, Colorado. We have 10 ice cores stored in this freezer. They said, they took me over and showed me one of the ice cores. They said, you see these rings on here? It looks like tree rings, dark, light, dark, light. I said, oh yeah, it's real clear. They said, well, what happens in the summer, the snow melts a little bit, and then it refreezes and makes clear ice. Shows up dark on the picture. In the winter, the snow just packs. It doesn't get a chance to melt. And so it shows up as a white layer. So these layers represent summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter. They said, now the deepest hole we've ever drilled is 10,000 feet deep. And we counted these ice rings, and there were 135,000 of them. And now you're going around telling everybody the Earth is 6,000 years old. We can prove it's at least 135,000. I said, fellas, aren't you assuming those are annual rings? See, they didn't know about the Lost Squadron, apparently. But in World War II, some airplanes ran out of gas and landed in Greenland. Has anybody ever heard of the Lost Squadron? Okay, it's been on TV a bunch of times. Well, the airplanes got left there in 1942. They went on and fought the war. Everybody forgot about them until a rich millionaire from Kentucky got a brilliant idea. Go find those airplanes and bring them home. He went there looking for the airplanes. They had to use ground-penetrating radar to penetrate the ice, and they located the planes. They melted a hole to get down to a P-38. It was 263 feet below the surface. They melted this hole down to get to the plane, took the plane apart, and brought the pieces back up through the hole and put it back together in Middleborough, Kentucky, not too far from here. How far is Middleborough from Knoxville? 2 hours, maybe? Okay. The planes, that's where its home base is, Middleborough. Well, the planes were in the ice for 48 years. They were 263 feet down. That's 5.5 feet a year. Now, the deepest hole they've ever drilled is 10,000 feet. You divide that by 5.5, you get 1,800 years. I know deeper layers get squished, called glacial firn, so really 4,000 years is plenty of time to put all the ice at the North and South Pole. So why isn't there more ice at the North and South Pole? I visited the museum and saw the guy who dug out the airplane. His name is Bob Carden. I said, Bob, when you went down to get to that airplane, did you go through ice rings? He said, oh yeah, many hundreds of them. I said, now wait a minute. How can there be hundreds of ice rings in 48 years? Shouldn't there be somewhere around 48? He said, who told you those are annual layers? He said, that doesn't represent summer, winter, summer, winter. It represents warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold. You can get 5 of those in 1 week in Knoxville, can't you? Yeah. But here's a guy still calling them annual layers. Now, either he's ignorant or he's lying.
Or he's just not using logic. Or he just doesn't want to admit that, yeah, folks, we haven't been here for millions and billions of years, and you can't use that evidence. It doesn't fly in the face of science. But if you use logic and you look at the age of the Bible records for us a creation date of approximately 6,000 years ago. Okay, as we've seen, the scientific facts and the logic point us towards the same dates, right? Not just the Bible, but even the scientific data. So could it be that the Bible is right after all? Wouldn't that be logical? Okay, and again, that's the problem, okay? And once again, folks, you got to keep in mind, this is the Achilles heel of evolution. Okay, they have to have these millions and billions of years. And that's why I would say this guy continues to teach that, even though we know it's not true. Those are not annual rings, because he knows logically, if he were to buy into that, then the whole thing overnight, his theory's destroyed. I'm telling you, I say it again. They have to have millions and billions of years in order for their fairy tale to work. So anytime you come across anything that demonstrates even logically, even scientifically, it's not true, walk away from it. Don't share it, cover it up, hide it away, or just ignore it. And that's what they're doing, okay? But again, you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe they got the universe wrong, they got the earth wrong, and apparently they're turning away from just common sense logic. Okay, when you take a look at some facts on the earth. But if it really was that obvious that we have a young earth, Joey, you would think that some of these guys would be at least intellectually honest enough to admit it once in a while, right? Well, believe it or not, there are a few of them that admit, folks, that believe it or not, even scientifically, yeah, you can trust the Bible. And not just the Bible, what it says, but even what the Bible says, how long we've been here. Okay, listen to a couple of these quotes here from scientists, okay? John Eddy, he's a PhD solar astronomer at the High Altitude Observatory in Boulder, Colorado. Here's what he said. There is what? No evidence based solely on solar observation that the sun is 4.5 billion years old. How much evidence? None. This is what he's saying. I'm not saying this, and he works at the observatory. He's a scientist. Okay? Listen, he said, given some new and unexpected results to the contrary, okay, I suspect, listen to what he says. I suspect we could live with Bishop Ussher's value for the age of the earth and sun about how long? Interesting, a scientist. He says, I don't think we have much in the way of observational evidence in astronomy to conflict with that. In other words, it's not just that the Bible says it, but when you deal with the scientific data, There's no conflict. This is how much of a cover-up that's going on, folks. And I'm telling you, they have to, this one they guard like a vengeance. Because they know if it ever gets out that we haven't been here for millions and millions of years, the whole thing falls flat on its face. Okay? In fact, this guy said this, Professor whoever, from Biological Society of Strasbourg, pronounce his name if you'd like. Here's what he said. Listen to this, direct quote. Evolution is what? I love it. A fairy tale for grown-ups. This theory has helped nothing in the progress of science. It is what? Useless. Okay? And folks, I'm glad that he used that word. He said it, I didn't, the scientist. It's a fairy tale for grown-ups because that's exactly what it would take for you and I to fall for this lie. Millions of years ago in a land far, far away, something mystical, something magical, a fairy tale came true, and Bobby did create a little brother out of the garage with a firecracker and an apple. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that great? It's called a fairy tale, okay? But again, you might be thinking, well, okay, maybe they got the universe wrong. They got the earth thing wrong. They're not using logic. And yeah, a few of them have come out on record saying that there's no reason to doubt the scripture. There's no conflict scientifically here, even with this dating thing. But what about all those dating methods that they throw out at us and say, oh yeah, we know we've been here for millions and billions of years because of a carbon dating. You guys heard that one? Or radiometric dating. Well, Lord willing, you don't want to miss next week because now we're going to start examining that. Carbon dating. In fact, if you take a look at the process of carbon dating, believe it or not, this is how twisted it is. Carbon dating, looking at the methodology and what it needs, actually proves that the earth has not been here for millions of years. Did you know that?